Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Life's got this way of throwing curveballs at us when we least expect it. 1 minute you're cruising down life's highway with the windows down, the sun shining and your favorite song on the radio. The next minute, boom, you're stuck in a storm you didn't see coming. And let me tell you, storms don't send out invitations. They just show up. Life is a journey. And like any journey, it is filled with moments of joy, and moments of difficulty. Trials are an inevitable part of our human experience. They arrive uninvited, often leaving us questioning the path we are on and the purpose behind our pain. Yet, as overwhelming as they may seem, trials are fleeting. They are temporary interruptions in the grand design of our lives, not the defining story. God's plan, on the other hand, is eternal, unchanging, and far greater than any challenge we may face. When trials hit, they often feel insurmountable. The weight of uncertainty, loss, or failure can cloud our vision and make us forget that life's struggles are but a chapter, not the whole book. It's easy to get trapped in the moment, believing that the pain we feel now will last forever. But the truth is, no storm lasts forever. The seasons of hardship come and go, just as winter inevitably gives way to spring. Trials are like the waves of the ocean, temporary, sometimes turbulent, but they always recede. God's plan, however, operates on a completely different timeline. While our perspective is limited to what's immediately in front of us, God's view stretches across eternity. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end all at once. Every trial we encounter fits into a much larger picture, a picture we can't always comprehend in the moment. What may feel like a detour to us is often a direct route in God's plan. His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with ours. The trials we endure are not random, they are purposeful, designed to refine us, strengthen us, and prepare us for the blessings and responsibilities He has in store. Consider a diamond being formed. It starts as a piece of coal buried deep within the earth. Only under intense pressure and heat does it transform into something beautiful and valuable. Similarly, our trials are not meant to destroy us, they are meant to transform us. They push us, challenge us, and shape us into the people God created us to be. And while the process may be painful, the outcome is always worth it. The coal never questions the pressure, it simply endures, trusting that something greater is being created. When we focus solely on our trials, we risk losing sight of God's eternal plan. It's like standing too close to a painting and only seeing the brushstrokes. From that vantage point, the masterpiece looks like a mess of random lines and colors. But when you step back, the picture comes into focus and the beauty of the artist's work is revealed. Our lives are much the same. The trials we face may seem like chaos up close, but from God's perspective, they are part of a masterpiece. The Apostle Paul understood this deeply when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 4:17-18, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary. But what is unseen is eternal. Paul faced countless trials, imprisonment, persecution, shipwrecks, and more, yet he recognized that these were momentary afflictions compared to the eternal glory that awaited him. God's plan is not just about getting us through the trials, it's about transforming us through them. He uses every difficulty to deepen our faith, to draw us closer to Him, and to equip us for the purpose He has uniquely designed for each of us. Even when we can't see the end, God asks us to trust Him. Not because the trials aren't real or painful, but because they are temporary. His promises endure beyond time itself, unshaken and unfailing. Life's storms come in many forms: loss, uncertainty, heartbreak, failure, and fear. They often arrive without warning, leaving us feeling adrift, searching for something solid to hold on to. In these moments, faith becomes more than a belief, it becomes an anchor. It grounds us when everything else seems unstable, providing a steady foundation when the waves of life threaten to overwhelm us. Faith does not remove the storm, but it gives us the strength to endure with hope and purpose. In the middle of a storm, our natural instinct is to look for control. We try to navigate the chaos, to find solutions, to hold things together by sheer willpower. But storms often expose the limits of our control. They show us how fragile our plans can be, how quickly the things we rely on can be swept away. It's in these moments of realization, when we feel most vulnerable, that faith steps in as a stabilizing force. Faith is the quiet reminder that we are not navigating the storm alone, that there is a greater power at work guiding us through the turmoil. Faith does not promise that we won't face challenges, but it assures us that we are never abandoned in them. It is the belief that God is present, even when the storm is raging. It's the assurance that His hand is steady, even when we cannot see it. Faith allows us to trust that there is purpose in the storm, even when the purpose is not yet clear. It reminds us that the storm is not the end of the story, it is merely a chapter in a much greater narrative. An anchor works by holding a ship steady, no matter how strong the winds or how high the waves. It doesn't stop the storm, but it keeps the vessel from drifting away. Similarly, faith holds us steady when the winds of doubt, fear, and despair threaten to carry us off course. It keeps us grounded in the truth that God's love is unwavering and His promises are unchanging. Faith gives us the courage to face the storm head on, knowing that our foundation is secure. When Jesus and His disciples were caught in a storm on the Sea of Galilee, the disciples panicked. They were experienced fishermen, accustomed to the water, yet even they were terrified by the ferocity of the waves. Meanwhile, Jesus slept unshaken by the storm. When they woke Him, crying out in fear, He calmed the storm with a word and asked, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" This story is a powerful reminder that faith is not about the absence of storms, but about trusting in the one who has power over them. Faith also brings peace in the midst of chaos. It is the assurance that no matter how difficult the storm, God is working all things for good. This doesn't mean the storm will be easy or that we won't experience pain and struggle. But faith shifts our focus from the problem to the provider, from the uncertainty of the waves to the certainty of God's presence. It allows us to rest, not because the storm has stopped, but because we trust the one who is with us in the storm. There's a beautiful strength that comes from faith in trying times. It doesn't make us immune to fear or doubt, but it gives us a way through them. Faith says, even though I can't see the way forward, I know God can. It is the confidence that His plans are higher than ours, His timing is perfect, and His love is unfailing. It is the quiet but unshakable belief that no matter how fierce the storm, we are held by the one who never lets go. Faith, like an anchor, keeps us secure, not by stopping the storm, but by keeping us steady in the midst of it. Pain is one of life's most profound experiences, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. When we encounter pain, our first reaction is often to question it, why it exists, why it happens to us, and what purpose it could possibly serve. Pain feels like an unwelcome visitor disrupting our lives and leaving us grasping for meaning. But God, in His infinite wisdom, does not waste pain. He uses it as a tool to shape us, refine us, and draw us closer to Him in ways we may not immediately understand. Pain often serves as a wake-up call, shaking us out of complacency and drawing our attention to what truly matters. It strips away the distractions and false securities we cling to, forcing us to confront our dependence on God. In moments of deep pain, we realize how limited our strength is and how much we need His. Pain humbles us, reminding us that we are not self-sufficient and that our lives are ultimately in His hands. It pushes us to seek Him with a vulnerability and sincerity that comfort often does not inspire. Through pain, God molds our character. Growth rarely happens in the absence of struggle. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance and steel is tempered through fire, our faith and resilience are strengthened through trials. Pain teaches us patience when we want quick solutions. It teaches us compassion as we relate to the suffering of others. It teaches us perseverance as we learn to endure. These qualities cannot be developed without challenge, and God allows pain not to harm us, but to transform us into who He created us to be. Pain also has a way of shifting our perspective. When life is smooth, we can easily become focused on ourselves, our plans, our desires, our comfort. But pain forces us to look beyond the immediate and the temporary. It reminds us of the fragility of life and the fleeting nature of earthly things. In doing so, it draws our attention to what is eternal. It deepens our longing for God's presence and His promises, anchoring us in the hope that transcends our circumstances. One of the most profound purposes of pain is its ability to draw us closer to God. When everything is stripped away and we are left with nothing but Him, we discover that He is enough. In the depths of our pain, we often experience His presence more intimately than ever before. His comfort, His peace, and His love become tangible in ways that defy explanation. Pain creates space for us to encounter Him, not as an abstract concept, but as the living, present God who walks with us through the valleys. Pain also becomes a platform for God's power to be revealed. In our weakness, His strength is made perfect. When we lean on Him in our suffering, His grace sustains us and His power carries us. The world notices when someone walks through pain with unshaken faith, and it points others to the source of that strength. Our trials become a testimony, a way for God to showcase His faithfulness and goodness even in the midst of hardship. Furthermore, the pain we experience equips us to minister to others. There is a unique depth of understanding and empathy that comes from walking through pain. God uses our experiences to help us comfort and encourage those who are facing similar struggles. Our scars become a source of healing for others as we testify to God's faithfulness in our own journey. God's purpose in pain is not always immediately clear. Often it is only in hindsight that we see how He was working in the midst of it all, weaving our suffering into a greater story of redemption and restoration. Pain is not an end in itself, but a part of the process through which God accomplishes His good and perfect will in our lives. It is a tool in the hands of a loving Creator, one who sees the bigger picture and knows the beauty that will emerge on the other side. The way we see the world shapes how we experience it. Perspective is not just about what we look at, but how we interpret it. And that interpretation can change everything. Two people can face the exact same situation, yet their experiences can feel entirely different based on how they view it. What we choose to focus on, how we frame our circumstances, and where we place our trust, all of these influence how we navigate life's challenges. In the storms of life, perspective becomes one of the most powerful tools we have to endure and overcome. When trials come, it is easy to feel overwhelmed by their weight. Pain, loss, and uncertainty can dominate our thoughts, making it seem as though there is no way forward. But the truth is, the way we choose to see our struggles can either amplify the burden or shift it into something meaningful. Perspective doesn't deny the reality of pain. Instead, it reframes it in the context of a bigger picture. It's the difference between seeing a setback as a punishment or as an opportunity for growth. It's the decision to view a closed door not as the end, but as God's redirection towards something better. Our perspective is often limited by our emotions. When we are in the middle of a trial, it's natural to feel consumed by the difficulty of the moment. It's like standing in the middle of a forest surrounded by trees, unable to see the path ahead. But God's perspective is higher and greater than ours. He sees the entire journey, from the beginning to the end. What looks like a dead end to us might be the exact place where God is preparing something new. Trusting His perspective allows us to let go of the need to understand everything in the moment and rest in the knowledge that He is in control. Our perspective is also shaped by where we place our focus. When we fixate on the problem, it grows larger in our minds, casting a shadow over everything else. But when we shift our focus to God, His promises, His character, His faithfulness, the problem begins to shrink. This is not because the problem isn't real, but because we're reminded that God is greater. Fixing our eyes on Him gives us the strength to endure, the peace to persevere, and the hope to move forward. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to reshape our perspective. Even in the midst of difficulty, there is always something to be thankful for. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, from what is wrong to what is right. It reminds us that no matter how hard life gets, God's blessings are still present. Gratitude doesn't eliminate the pain, but it gives us the resilience to see beyond it. Perspective also shapes how we view ourselves in the face of challenges. Trials can make us feel powerless, but with the right perspective, they can reveal our strength. They remind us of our ability to endure, adapt, and grow. More importantly, they show us that we are not alone. God is with us, walking beside us every step of the way. When we view our struggles through the lens of faith, they become less about what we lack and more about what God is building within us. The stories we tell ourselves about our circumstances have the power to change how we live them. If we see trials as insurmountable, they will feel that way. But if we view them as temporary challenges with eternal purpose, they become opportunities for growth, resilience, and faith. Perspective doesn't change the facts of our reality, but it changes how we experience them. It allows us to see not just the pain of the moment, but the possibility of what lies beyond it. When we align our perspective with God's truth, we begin to see our struggles through a different lens. We realize that they are not just random occurrences, but part of a greater story. Trials are not the end, they are a means to something greater. By shifting our focus from the temporary to the eternal, we find the strength to endure and the hope to believe in a future that is brighter than the present. Our perspective shapes reality, and when our perspective is rooted in faith, it transforms even the darkest moments into opportunities for God's light to shine. Life's challenges often demand our attention, and it's easy to let them consume us. Problems have a way of growing larger in our minds the more we focus on them. They fill our thoughts, steal our peace, and dictate our emotions. But when we give our problems too much space, we risk making them the center of our lives. Without realizing it, we can begin to worship the problem instead of trusting the God who is greater than it. Worship, at its core, is about what we give our focus, our energy, and our reverence to. When we allow our struggles to take that place, we diminish the role of God in our hearts. When we worship the problem, we magnify it beyond its true size. It begins to feel all-encompassing, overshadowing everything else. The problem becomes the first thing we think about in the morning and the last thing on our minds at night. It dictates our decisions, drains our energy, and robs us of joy. This happens because whatever we focus on most becomes the most powerful thing in our lives. If our attention is fixed on the problem, it starts to control us, not because it is more powerful than God, but because we've given it that power. But God never intended for us to live that way. He calls us to fix our eyes on Him, not on our circumstances. The problem may be real, but God is bigger. He is sovereign, all-powerful, and unchanging. When we worship Him instead of the problem, we shift our perspective. The problem no longer feels insurmountable because we're reminded of who God is. He is the creator of the universe, the one who holds all things in His hands, and the one who promises to work all things for our good. Worshiping Him reclaims the peace and hope that the problem tried to steal. This doesn't mean ignoring the problem or pretending it doesn't exist. Faith is not denial. It's about choosing where to place our trust. When we worship the problem, we put our trust in its ability to define our lives. But when we worship God, we declare that He is the one who defines us, not our circumstances. Worshiping God in the midst of difficulty is a powerful act of faith. It's a declaration that we believe His promises even when we can't see them yet. It's saying, God, I trust You more than I fear this problem. The story of Peter walking on water offers a vivid picture of this principle. When Peter stepped out of the boat, his eyes were fixed on Jesus, and he did the impossible. He walked on water. But the moment he shifted his focus to the wind and the waves, he began to sink. The waves were always there, but they only became a problem when Peter gave them more attention than Jesus. This story is a reminder that what we focus on determines whether we walk in faith or sink in fear. Worshipping the problem also limits our ability to see God's hand at work. When we're consumed by the problem, we miss the opportunities for growth, the lessons to be learned, and the ways God is moving on our behalf. It blinds us to His provision and distracts us from His presence. But when we choose to worship God, our perspective shifts. The problem may not disappear instantly, but our hearts are strengthened and our faith is renewed. We start to see his faithfulness, even in the small things, and that gives us the courage to keep moving forward. Ultimately, worshiping God instead of the problem reminds us of who he is and who we are in him. Problems are temporary, but God's power and promises are eternal. Worship lifts our eyes from the difficulty and focuses them on the one who is greater than anything we face. It's in that place of worship that we find peace, hope, and the strength to trust that God is working all things together for our good, even when the outcome isn't clear. By refusing to worship the problem, we make room for God to move in ways that exceed anything we could imagine. Gratitude is a powerful force that transforms how we see the world and deepens our relationship with God. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, from our struggles to God's provision, and from fear to faith. Gratitude is not just a response to good times, it is a choice to recognize God's faithfulness in every season, even when life feels uncertain or difficult. In choosing gratitude, we unlock trust, not just trust in God's ability to provide for our needs, but trust in his timing, his plan, and his unwavering love. When we practice gratitude, we are reminded of God's past faithfulness. Every answered prayer, every moment of provision, and every time we were sustained through difficulty becomes evidence of his character. Gratitude forces us to pause and reflect on these moments, building a foundation of trust that God will be just as faithful in the future as he has been in the past. It is nearly impossible to focus on what God has done for us and still doubt his ability to do it again. Gratitude connects us to the consistency of his love and reassures us that he is in control, even when life feels out of our hands. Gratitude also challenges the narrative of scarcity that often dominates our thinking. When problems arise, it's easy to fall into a mindset of not enough time, not enough resources, not enough strength to get through. This scarcity mindset can breed fear and anxiety, making it harder to trust God. But gratitude reframes our perspective. Instead of focusing on what's missing, it highlights what is already present. It reminds us that God has been providing for us all along, often in ways we didn't expect or even recognize at the time. By focusing on what we do have, gratitude creates space for trust to grow. It shifts our perspective from fear of lack to confidence in God's provision. Moreover, gratitude opens our hearts to see God's hand in situations we might otherwise overlook. In every season, there are blessings, sometimes small, sometimes hidden, that we can find if we choose to look for them. Gratitude teaches us to seek out these blessings even in the midst of trials. It allows us to see challenges not just as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth, refinement, and deeper reliance on God. As we thank him for the lessons and strength that come through difficulty, our trust in his purpose for our lives deepens. We begin to see that he is working all things together for our good, even when we don't understand the process. Practicing gratitude also changes our posture before God. Instead of approaching him with a heart full of demands or complaints, we approach him with thanksgiving. This shift fosters intimacy with him because it acknowledges his goodness, sovereignty, and care. Gratitude isn't about ignoring the reality of our struggles, it's about recognizing that God is greater than those struggles. When we thank him in the middle of uncertainty, we declare our trust in his plan, even when the outcome is unclear. Gratitude becomes an act of worship, a way of saying, God, I trust you with this because you have never failed me before. In many ways, gratitude and trust are inseparable. Gratitude looks back at what God has done, while trust looks forward to what he will do. Together, they form a cycle that strengthens our faith. Each act of gratitude reinforces our trust, and each step of trust opens our eyes to more reasons for gratitude. This cycle builds a deep, unshakable confidence in God's faithfulness. Gratitude also guards our hearts against bitterness, doubt, and fear, things that can erode trust in God. When we intentionally focus on what we are thankful for, it becomes harder for negativity to take root. Gratitude reminds us of God's presence in every moment, which helps us trust that he will never leave us no matter what we face. It realigns our hearts with his promises and reassures us that he is always working for our good. Choosing gratitude is not always easy, especially when life is hard. But it is in those moments of difficulty that gratitude becomes most powerful. It allows us to anchor our trust in the unchanging character of God rather than the shifting circumstances around us. By thanking Him for what we have, even when it feels small or insufficient, we open the door for Him to do more than we could ask or imagine. Gratitude unlocks trust, and trust, in turn, unlocks the peace and joy that come from knowing we are held by a faithful God. In the journey of life, we will all face storms, trials, and moments of uncertainty. But through it all, how we choose to respond defines our experience and shapes our growth. By shifting our perspective, practicing gratitude, and placing our trust in God, we can navigate even the toughest challenges with strength and hope. Instead of magnifying the problem, we can magnify the one who holds the solution. Instead of worshiping the trial, we can anchor ourselves in the eternal promises of a faithful God. Gratitude opens the door to trust. Trust gives us peace, and peace sustains us in the storms. The trials may be temporary, but God's purpose is eternal. And when we trust Him, we find that His plans for us are greater than anything we could ever imagine. So let us fix our eyes on Him, not the waves, and walk forward with faith, knowing He is always in control.